Hey, Jesus fans, welcome to True North Podcast, where we grow closer to God together. This podcast was brought to you by Solid Rock Church in Irving, Texas, and our host, Pastor Ed Snyder. To find out more about this podcast, visit our website at truenorthdfw.org. Now let's join Pastor Snyder in a new direction and a new destination.
And welcome, everybody, back to another episode of True North Podcast with your host, yours truly, Pastor Snyder. We are super jazzed about all of our listeners that are coming on board. Thank you for your faithfulness and loyalty to True North Podcast with Pastor Snyder. We are enjoying your company each week as you come on board and listen to another great episode. Little favor, if you would, can you go to your favorite listening platform or to the website of truenorthdfw.org and give us a rating, a review? That would help us immensely. Another thing that we're super jazzed about is our book, our brand new book, Control the Beast, is really picking up sales, which means we're making an impact. And that is the goal, is to impact in a positive way many that read the book and many that listen to this podcast. So again, thank you for those that are purchasing the book. A special mention today is our friends at Apostolic Review that did a review on the book and gave us some real positive feedback. Thank you, guys. We appreciate your help there. So we're off to another great episode today. We're going to be talking about how the beast works, the mechanics of emotion. Stay close, stay tuned, get your cup of coffee, relax, and we'll be right back. Okay, so again, as I mentioned before, we're into how the beast works, understanding the mechanics of emotions. And how the book works in Control the Beast is that each chapter builds on another. And the main thread through this whole thing is the first episode we did, or chapter 1, the power of understanding the beast. That's where the key is in all of this, is when we come to an understanding of how everything works, how it affects us, our environment, like we talked about last week, cleaning up our environment. And that is important. The 6 triggers, which we'll touch on again today, that may be in our environment that's causing us to have our issues, problems, our frustration, anxiety, fear, depression, and anger. So again, as I mentioned before, what are emotions? That's a question that I ask in our class that we do with this, is what is emotions? And of course, the common thread answer is feelings. It's what we feel, and that is correct. However, let's look a little deeper into the question of how the beast works and understanding the mechanics of emotions. In reality, emotions are the psychological vehicle by which we as humans communicate and interrelate. We can say something and not utter one word simply by the emotion that we expose. You know, it's written on our face. We can tell when somebody is happy because they're smiling and there's a brightness about their face. We can tell when somebody is not so happy. Perhaps they're angry or they're mad, and we can see it on their face because emotions always show, for the most part, not in every case, on the outside. We can also tell when somebody is sad because, again, the expression on the face that the emotions allow to come to the surface. So again, emotions are the psychological vehicle by which humans communicate and interrelate. Webster's definition of emotions is the affective aspect of consciousness, in other words, feelings, or a psychic and physical reaction such as fear or anger, subjectively experienced as strong feelings and physically involving changes that prepare the body for immediate, vigorous reaction. So again, notice that emotions is affective, spelled with an A, not effective, affective, arising from, relating to, or influencing emotions or feelings. So again, emotions are a combination of mental, psychic, and physical as controlled by an internal mechanism, and which gets the person ready for a reaction to threats, whether they're real or whether they're perceived. So it's, again, ladies and gentlemen, it is vital to understand emotions in order to control them. The only way you're going to fix a car is that you understand how the car works, how an engine operates. That way you can troubleshoot it, you can do a diagnostic on it, figure out what the problem is, what it may be doing or not doing, and then go into the problem and fix it. So the only way we're going to manage or get our emotions under control is that we first understand how emotions operate. So again, it's vital. Now, emotions are really considered to be a universal attribute of human beings. In other words, like our language varies from where we're from, such as if you're from Asia, then you can usually speak some kind of Asian dialect. If you're from South America, Spanish is more than likely your primary language, of course. So just like languages, we have specific language, just like where we're from, then we have a language. Well, that's not that way with emotions. Emotions are universal across the board. It doesn't matter if we're from Asia, South America. It doesn't matter if we're from Europe, Ireland. Emotions are still the same. Happiness is still the same. Joy is still the same. Frustration, fear, depression, anxiety, anger, it's all the same no matter what part of the world we are from. Now, here's something else that we really need to grab a hold of is not everyone operates at the same level in regards to emotions. Some people are said to be emotionalist, and that is a misconception. I just don't feel things. Yeah, you do. It just may be firing on a different level than others. Some people, and I know you've probably heard this term, they're very emotional. In other words, they're very expressive of their emotions, where others may not be as expressive of their emotions. It's just like going back to the language. Some people talk a lot. Some people are talkers. They just love to communicate. Others, not so much. They're very quiet type people, but it doesn't matter that they're not having, whether they're expressive in their language or not. It doesn't make any difference whether they are thinking thoughts. It's not like they're not thinking thoughts. They are. They just choose not to express the thoughts that's in their mind. Same principle. We are emotional. We fire on different levels in our emotions. So this is really a misconception when some people are said to be emotionalist. And the truth is that some people are just highly developed in their emotions. Okay. For example, somebody can be sitting there in a chair and something happened that disturbed them, and they can just sit there with, basically a blank look on their face, and they're saying, I am really upset about that. Where others is like, I can't believe they said something like that. And they're very expressive. Again, they're firing on a different level, and that's how that works. So they're firing on one or two emotions versus others are firing on 5, 6, 7 emotions all at the same time. Now, here's something else that we need to understand about the mechanics of emotions. Some people are not so sensitive. Others are very sensitive. Sensitivity is important in our emotions, the right level of sensitivity. Now, some people need to be a little more sensitive. Others maybe need to be a little less sensitive. But sensitivity is what I'm after here and in this moment, and that is that sensitivity can be developed. Knowing that this is true opens the door for what is called in psychology behavior modification. And that's really what Control the Beast is about, is modifying our behaviors in an understanding. So in the study of this, only a few areas of emotional behavior modifications really are desired. They're the target. They're the goal. And in order to understand emotions, it's necessary to understand the operation of the human mind, which brings us to the fact that there really are only two general types of brain function that exist. One is the conscious mind, and the other is the subconscious mind. So let's go over them. Let's talk about them a little bit here. The conscious mind is the aware part of the mind. It is if you relate it to things that we do, such as how we operate, the conscious mind is extremely organized. They're the person that's got their date book, they've got their to-do list, they've got their filing cabinet, and everything is very clean, everything is very neat, everything is very, very in order. It has to have an order. So the conscious mind is the aware part of the mind. We are aware of what's going on, and we file everything neatly. So let me put it this way. If you pull the drawer open of the file cabinet of the conscious mind, all of the files in that drawer are extremely clean, very neat. All the tabs are in order. Everything is alphabetized. All the papers inside each folder is neatly placed and in order. It's clean. You can look in there and instantly find the file, pull it up, and there it is. Another way to explain the conscious mind is that example, if you'd get up in the middle of the night and you need to use the restroom, you don't turn any lights on in your own house because you know how to navigate through your bedroom. For example, I know in my own house, when I go to our bathroom off of our bedroom, I know where the bed is. I know where an antique sewing machine of my mother-in-law's is sitting, and I know exactly how to maneuver through my bedroom and without lights on. Okay, that's the conscious mind at work. However, if I would come and spend the night at your house and I had to go to the bathroom, I would need a light because in my conscious mind, I don't know where the furniture is placed. And so I'm going to run into something because, again, my mind hasn't got the room laid out, mapped out. Another way to explain the conscious mind is if I was working in a factory and we were putting things together on the assembly line, my hands can do this, can put this piece to this piece and this piece to this piece as it goes by on the conveyor belt. At the very same time, I could be talking to a coworker about a baseball game or a football game or whatever's going on in the current events. So my hands are doing one thing while I am having a conversation about something totally different than what my hands are doing. Again, everything, facts, figures, placements is all neatly placed in the conscious mind. The subconscious mind is absolutely the opposite end of the spectrum. In the conscious mind and how it works is totally different. You know, we've heard someone say, somewhere in the back of my mind, I remember. That's the subconscious mind. You know, there's an emotion attached when you say, hey, do you remember so-and-so back in when we were in high school? And then that's where you'll hear, you know, somewhere in the back of my mind, I do remember them. There's an emotion attached. Okay. Here's another thing about the subconscious mind. That's where the quote unquote baggage is stored, because feelings and emotions that are attached to events from somewhere in the childhood, somewhere in the teenage years, or your younger life is stored in the subconscious mind. So if you'd pull the file cabinet drawer open on the subconscious mind, everything is tossed. It's chaotic. There's no alphabetizing of the folders. It's just thrown in there. Papers are sticking up out of the file folders. It's wrinkled. It's jammed up. It's crammed in. It's just a mess. That is the general description of the subconscious mind. Not clean, not neat, thrown in, no rhyme or reason, and very messy. And so again, these are where the emotions are stored and not even aware of what's in there. Here's an example of the subconscious mind. There is where things are stored that is attached to emotion that you don't even know it's there. A behavior, perhaps, that you do that you don't even remember where you picked it up or how you learned it. Why? Because it's attached to an emotion. Years and years ago, my wife's best friend's husband died in a very tragic accident at work. He worked in a chemical plant explosion. I'll let you assume the rest. Well, at Howard's funeral afterwards, they had a dinner. Howard always had every meal a large glass of water. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. He'd have a coffee with his eggs and bacon and a large glass of water. You know, his sandwich, a burger and French fries, and a Coke and a large glass of water. His son, who is his namesake, Howard Jr., at the dinner got his dinner together and got a large glass of water. Now, everybody that was directly related to that knew that Howard Sr. did, now, son, get a large glass of water. It was something that he learned in his environment that was attached to his emotion. The emotion was his love for his father, and he patterned himself after his father. Again, subconscious mind operating there, and that's what we learn things that we don't even realize we have. So a person says something, it causes a reaction. Okay, here's something that we need to learn about how these mechanics of emotions, or how the beast works. Somebody says something and we just go off. We get depressed, or we go the other direction. We get very angry. We get very emotional. What in the world? What did I say? What happened? Well, some trigger was said that was attached to an emotion. And when that happens, we can't just say, I got to quit saying that. I got to quit getting angry, or I got to quit allowing myself to get depressed or scared or whatever. We have to go back to the source. Okay. Again, the actions are caused by emotions, and in studying emotions, we have to work backwards. So we can't just not say that. We can't just stop cussing somebody out, throw things, or get depressed. We have to take a step back, observe the action. The action then is attached to an emotion, and that emotion has a source. It has a beginning. So we got to get to the messy file cabinet to be able to identify what emotion is attached to the action, and then what event now is attached to that emotion. Somebody says mashed potatoes. What? And we go into a fit. Well, my mother fixed me instant mashed potatoes all my life and made me eat those nasty things. And so there's the event that attached to the emotion that was attached to the action. Are you following what I'm saying here? So we can't just quit doing the action until we go all the way back into the subconscious mind and learn where that emotion came from and what event it was attached to. Okay? So a little bit of understanding emotions and the mechanics of emotions just in the 30 minutes of this podcast. Again, the book goes into much more detail, and our online course that we're developing, I want to give you a heads up. It's coming. I can't tell you what date it's coming, but when it comes, I recommend that you take this course so we can dive deeper into this. Now, identifying emotions. We all have love, patience, long suffering. We have temperance, we have kindness, we have tenderness, we have love, we have mercy, we give a little bit of grace. We know what that all feels like. Those are identified in general as positive emotions. Remember, I think it was last week in the episode that when I am in a training and I'm teaching on this, I'll ask the room in 1 minute and 1 second, identify a positive emotion. And people like, love. And that's the default. They can't think of a positive emotion in a second's time. But then I'll go around the room and say, identify a negative emotion. Bam, 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 bam. Why? Because our society has taught us to identify to negative versus positive. Therefore, in a little rehearsal from last week's episode, we have to produce positive emotions to counteract the negative emotions that we feel all day long. Okay? Now, negative emotions. If you remember the episode that identified positive and negative emotions like the car battery. We have a positive post and a negative post, and we have to be properly connected with a balance and a nice tight connection for us to function on a normal level. So we have to have positive emotions, and we can't do without negative emotions because that teaches us some things. Now, identifying the negative side, anger, temper, hatred, bitterness, jealousy, intolerance, intemperance, impatience, and on and on and on. Identifying an emotion as a positive or a negative does not make that emotion wrong, okay? And it does not cause the person to be an evil person or a bad person. Just because you're dealing with depression, fear, anger, frustration a lot doesn't make you a bad person because you've got a little imbalance in your emotions. Emotions are really intended to balance one another, to live and to function in a civilized society. Okay? So since emotions are mental in origin and physical in implementation, it really has to, we have to understand the biology of emotions. Now, again, last week, we talked about cleaning up your environment, okay? And we talked about 6 common main identifier or triggers that we need to identify in our emotions. Now, I want to rehearse that list because I want to show you something of how this all works. Now, here's the list: pornography, violent videos, television programming, movies, magazines, violent or profane language in the home, professional wrestling, and music that is not healthy music. Now, out of that list, again, pornography, violent videos, television programming, movies, magazines, violent, profane language, professional wrestling, music. 4 of those 6 triggers are visual in nature. 4 of those 6, if you notice that. Now, here's something that we have to realize about understanding how this beast works. Visual advertisements key in on emotional reaction. You know, what is sexy about milk on your lip? Got milk? You remember that old advertisement. It's not the milk on the lip. It's the sexy lady that has the milk on her lip. Or it's the handsome dude that has the milk on the lip. It's tying in to an emotion. Okay, good advertisement are emotional. I remember back in the day when we were producing some videos for a fundraising program in our church fellowship called Christmas for Christ. We keyed in on emotions, how this missionary has won this family to the Lord and how that they came from an awful background. It's tying into an emotion. So again, visual advertisements are keying into emotional reactions. So they may be a violent stimulators, but they're certainly emotional stimulators. So That's something that we have to realize and understand. Now, visual cues are usually used in education. Children go and they see things. That's why the videos are so important today, because people see and it's keying in some kind of emotion to grab us. All right. Here's a famous quotation. A picture's worth 1,000 words. We can look at a picture and get a whole lot of information. So as we're getting down to the last few minutes of our podcast, I want you to grab a hold of that. It's common knowledge that with increased visual exposure comes a deadening or a desensitizing of emotions. I worked with, in the past, a lot of law enforcement. High rate of divorce among law enforcement. Why? Because they're out there 12 hours a day, several days in a row, seeing violence, children being shot accidentally, a lot of negative stuff, and therefore they have to desensitize their emotions. The problem is when they come home, they're having trouble shifting gears. Okay, so military, same thing. Medical professionals, same thing. I mean, if somebody cut somebody open and I was there, I'm on the floor or I'm throwing up because, all of the blood and guts, where, that's nothing to a doctor that does surgery every day. Again, a desensitization of our emotions. So another illustration is that when we hear things constantly, that we allow jokes to be told that are not of a good nature, we become desensitized to that. So the problem that we're coming against is the society that we live in is experiencing a loss of emotional sensitivity due to this subconscious hardening of emotions. Now, there's a whole lot more in our course that about Control the Beast to go deeper into this to help us. But as we close out today's podcast, I want to talk about a few points to remember about your emotions or your feelings. Number one, feelings are a part of the human design and human makeup. We are wired with many feelings, both positive and negative. Balance is important. Number two, the ability to recognize what you're feeling relieves and empowers you. So once we understand how this beast works and we are able to identify the feelings that we are feeling and experiencing, whether they're positive or negative, will relieve you because you realize you're not abnormal, and it empowers you. Number three, feelings provide a source of information about yourself and your own reaction to the world around you. Number four, there is a comfort in knowing that feelings do change over time, positive or negative, good or bad. Again, they do change. It depends on what you're doing with them that makes all the difference. Number five, accepting and understanding your feelings gives you options about how and when to express them. Short of that is, it's not what you say, it's how you say it that makes all the difference in the world. Number six, your feelings can make you unique from others. You can be that loving and kind person, or you can be that strict and stern person. It depends on how you express them. Number seven, feelings connect you with other human beings. Feelings connect you with other human beings. So again, folks, I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. We are excited about the impact that Control the Beast has made over 20 years worth of research and work and teaching. And again, we're coming out with a video here shortly about my personal testimony of how I live this life. It's not about knowledge and study and college classes that I have taken and all this. It's actually living in the camp of controlling the beast And so, again, that's coming later. Thank you again for all of our listeners that have joined us. Keep going. Don't forget, if you would, go to the website, truenorthdfw.org, and give us a review, a rating on the show or on the podcast. That would be awesome. Next week, we're coming back with Mr. Beastie's Game. We're going to be talking about blame and responsibility. But until then, be blessed. Be so blessed of God. Go to the Amazon.com if you haven't already. Purchase the e-version or the paperback version of Control the Beast. Read it along with these episodes. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us at True North Podcast. You can find us on iHeartRadio or any other podcasting platform. If you want to have any questions, visit us at truenorthdfw.org. We'll catch y'all next week.